I'll often go into a recruitment meeting now and try and talk someone out of a real estate career. 50% of real estate brokers don't survive 2 years. It is a commission-only game. You eat what you kill, right? So if you're not living up to that expectation of a customer, then you just simply don't survive.
It's frightening, but it's exciting playing an infinite game, because it's like we're setting this thing up forever.
In 50 years, we've grown from a family business in the basement of the parents' home, organisation now that has over 100 offices, 2,500 people. And I can tell you that with every meeting we have, with every strategy session, everything we do as a leadership group, we are constantly fighting against becoming a corporate.
I think a lot of good real estate agents are just good coaches, good life coaches. They're trying to add value to someone's life.
The younger people we're hiring today, I think the biggest obstacle a lot of them are going to have to overcome is actually around personal, physical, human interactions.
Choose one as your most important, let's say, pillar of high performance.
Ooh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the InnerFight Podcast. Today, we are talking all about the power of high performance culture, both in business and also in sport. Have you ever wondered what really drives success in both business and sport, and how maybe closely related those things, those behaviors can be? My guest is Lloyd Budd, who those of you that have listened to the show for a long time will know this guy's voice. He's now the CEO of Bayleys Real Estate in New Zealand. And in our chat, we dive into various strategies that he's deployed over his incredible career in real estate to create a high performance culture, a culture that brings him in his business, in the various businesses that he's worked in, the performance that he's looking for. He shares some amazing actionable strategies to enhance employee performance, and also the parallels, we chat quite a bit in detail actually, of the parallels of the real estate business and also the fitness business. Who knew that they would be so closely related in so many different ways? We also talk about the role of company culture and emotional intelligence in achieving high performance in the workplace and also in life. This is episode number 928 of the InnerFight Podcast. No matter where you are in the world, thanks a lot for tuning in. Let's jump into today's show. Let's kick off. Lloyd Budd, welcome back to the InnerFight Podcast. It's been many years.
It has. Welcome back. That seems like a funny way to start.
Yeah, it is. Mate, today we're talking high performance and high performance in the corporate world. What is high performance?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating question, isn't it? And it's something we're trying to answer every day when we go to work. It's something we try to answer every time we're in front of a customer and a pitch, whatever. I think for me it comes down to getting our people to perform to the best of their ability in their chosen field.
Right.
And there's a number of ways we can assist that, right? Through tools, through training, through coaching, through experience. But ultimately, for us, it comes down to that moment, those key moments in that customer journey where that performance, all that work, all that experience comes to the forefront to make a difference to someone's asset.
You have worked in real estate for basically your whole working life, which for a lot of people is, I don't know, I think it's quite similar to our industry, to the fitness industry. It's highly competitive. It's often driven by some quite dirty tactics in a number of, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So it's an industry that, and lots of people who are not what you've just described, they don't want to be the best, actually continue to do quite well in the real estate market. So my question here is, in a market that's very full, let's say, how do you get people to want to adopt a mindset that says, I actually want to be the best?
In real estate, I can't speak for fitness, do attract all types. And I mean,
Same.
but part of that is a strength, right? Part of that is pretty cool. Part of that is we've heard a lot in recent years around diversity and inclusion. I think it's something that real estate has done by natural selection for a long, long period of time.
Yeah.
As you said, I've worked in real estate for 23 years. I've been in a position where I've been fortunate enough to interview literally hundreds of candidates, and I still can't get it right in knowing who's going to perform and who's not. Those traits that you may consider successful or high performance, sometimes they don't relate to reality. Sometimes they miss that X factor. Maybe it's coming down to people skills or networking or closing. So, we can never get that fully right to fully understand. And what I think about real estate in terms of maybe supporting our industry a bit more is that it does self-regulate a lot. No matter who comes into the industry, it is a commission-only game. You eat what you kill, right? So if you're not providing a level of service, if you're not trusted, if you're not getting referrals, if you're not living up to that expectation of a customer, then you just simply don't survive. And I think that kind of leveling of an industry, that the self-regulation of that is part of what I think defines success. We've got in New Zealand, and I can't speak for Dubai or the rest of the world, 50% of real estate brokers don't survive 2 years.
Wow.
So you imagine having a conversation with someone, they're giving up their job, they're giving up their career, they see this opportunity. They've got this window to make it or break it. Yeah. Now, if they're going to be rude to customers, if they're going to not tell the truth, lie, then they're not going to survive. And I think that's one thing that we use to try and self-regulate.
At the recruitment process, if you know that statistic, 50% don't make it, how does that impact the recruitment process? Like you're going to interview 10 people tomorrow. If we go by the stats, 5 of them you're going to hire, and in 2 years they won't be in the business.
So again, I think it's one of these things that changes over time, and particularly as market cycles do as well in the way you recruit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll often go into a recruitment meeting now and try and talk someone out of a real estate career. Whereas perhaps 15 years ago when I first had my own business, I was desperate to get anybody I could to come in. So anyone listening, there's a sort of trick of the trade for how I recruit. So we'll try and talk people out of it. Yeah. And then we don't follow up. So we actually deliberately in our customer journey for recruitment do not follow up. So that's an ultimate test. If you can't then re-engage with us and follow up, is that position there? How's that going? That's ultimately, a test case for how you're going to go when you go door knocking and get a rejection, or you get someone that doesn't come back. So if you're sitting there waiting for that owner to call you back and saying, please Marcus, please come and list my property, then again, that's a sign for us that you're not going to...
That must be quite mad if you sit in front of someone that you actually genuinely feel is a good talent and has what it takes. Your next step is almost to go radio silent on them.
Absolutely. But it's a test, it's a really important part of the process.
Yeah.
And look, we're obviously looking for other traits as well. I mean, that to me, there's one trait in real estate, probably fitness, probably so many other industries that you can't replace, which is hard work. Yeah. So we're always testing for that. We're always testing for teamwork and fit and culture. That's a lot of the reasons behind the interview process and how we select is about those cultural fit pieces. To your point before, how do you weed out those that don't fit that high performance mindset or that untrustworthy nature? We do our best to cover that piece up front. But you send them off, and as I say, I know of people that I've missed out on recruiting because they haven't called back and they've turned up with a competitor and done really well.
Really?
And there's other people that I would have absolutely sworn, will be high achiever, top agent status, that just failed to fire. And I still can't put my finger on it.
You've always been quite interested in those other parts of the business. You mentioned it there, like just outright hard work, culture, environment. where do you think that came from? Because a lot of industries are based on qualification, actual brain capacity. There's and not that real estate or our industry even, they all need a certain amount of brain capacity, but maybe that's a presumption that we have that education. Where do you think your awareness of these other facets of performance, hard work, culture, how you treat each other, which could be put into culture, where did that come from, or can you remember where it started?
I can. And I consider myself very lucky to be in this position I am today. 24 years ago, I'd applied for a scholarship, and I was fortunate enough to receive this award. And when I walked off the stage, and I met this guy called John Bayley, and he said, "Oh, that was a fantastic speech. I'd like you to come and work for me now." And I said, "That's wonderful. What do you do?" and he says, "Well, I'm actually the owner and chairman of Bayleys." And I went, "Gee, that's wonderful. What do they do?" So you got to kind of imagine I'm starting at 17 years old or whatever with little to no understanding of a real estate industry.
Yeah.
Little to understanding or no understanding clearly of the Bayleys business. Because of that support I had, and because of the wraparound of not just JB, but Mike and Dave and the entire family, I think I learnt their style.
Yeah.
I learnt what has made their company so successful. And keep in mind, by the time I turned up, they were already 30 years into this incredible family journey of growth.
Yeah.
New Zealand's largest full service real estate company at that point. So there's a lot to learn. And there's a few key lessons, and we, like most officers, you'll see them around the walls in the office, all these sort of key messages and things. And we have these things called JBisms, so John Bayley, those. And I think that's where I've learned a lot of it. I vividly remember these conversations that he had with me when I was young and starting out around, for example, at Bayleys, Lloyd, we go and form our own queue. That may seem like, well, what does that mean? But you sit there and listen to John, and he said, well, we don't wait for people to knock on a door. We don't wait for people to ring from an ad. We actually go and make that demand happen. We form our own queue in everything we do. And then when you apply that hustle or that self-starter or that mindset, you go, wow, that actually means a lot to us. Another one he talked about was, we add value to our clients' assets. And this for me is a double-edged one where, one, it weeds out a bunch of those people that don't see value, those that are just there for money, those that are just there to earn a commission. That's not who we are. That's not who John and the family set up. We're there to identify ways to help our customers actually succeed. But what he did really well with it, and his dad, who started the company with him, Graham Bayley, has this infamous story where he went to a listing pitch. So in real estate, we have to win our business, right? And often the listing pitch is where you win your customer. It's not where you make the money, but that's when they choose to go with us or the competitors. And in this particular case, Graham Bayley had a competitor who was talking to the farmer and his wife, and they turned up slightly early, JB and his dad. And they said, oh, look, just wait out here. We're almost finished with, Bill. We'll be out with you in no time. And while he was there, Graham saw that the fence posts on the farmer's property had been bent a bit. So he literally went to the back of his ute, got out his fencing kit, and was straightening up the fence.
No way.
And as the farmer came out to say goodbye to the other agent, he said, mate, excuse me, what are you doing? He said, well, if I'm going to sell your property, we need to get the best price. And to get the best price, your property has to be presented in an immaculate way. So I'm here to add value to your property. And as the legend goes, he won the listing, sold the property, and that was kind of the start of that Bayleys mantra of adding value. So I think if you apply just two of those real basic JBisms about form your own queue, you can relate to it. It's self-starting. It's tie your laces in the morning. It's that hustle we talk about, and then you overlay that with this entire. There's a lot of chat these days about customer centricity, customer at the centre of everything we do. That they've done that since 1973.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, that's where I think I learned it from, around this family business that had these.
Do you think Do you think it's more prevalent in family businesses and businesses that started very small rather than big corporates? The feeling of like that's almost what I'd call genuine culture, and it's a legacy as well. What Graham did that day has been passed down. That story has come to you as the now CEO. You'll preach that to your people. That it's a legacy. It will continue forever because of how it started. In the world right now, we have a lot of people that work in big organizations that they might have started somehow similar to that. The legacy might have either burnt out, or companies will have started solely to make a lot of money. What's the difference? Like, is there a big difference between family business and, I mean, it's hard because Bayleys is a big corporation nowadays. So where do the lines sort of get blurred or stop, or why do they stop in other companies?
It's again a fascinating question, Marcus. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert on corporate culture because
that's why I've got you here.
Because I've never worked in one, right? So it's hard for me to comment on what it's like to work for a Coca-Cola or what have you. What I can say is that, as you mentioned, we've grown now. In 50 years, we've grown from a family business in the basement of the parents' home through to an organisation now that has over 100 offices, 2,500 people,
wow.
Over a dozen different business lines. We've just invested into Australia. We've just bought the McGrath's business here in Australia. And I can tell you that with every meeting we have, with every strategy session, everything we do as a leadership group, we are constantly fighting against becoming a corporate. So while we don't know what that is, everything we do goes back to protecting those family values.
Wow.
You can sit there with the family and, with 2,500 people, they will know everybody's name in the room. They'll probably know your revenue numbers. They'll probably know, the last deal you did and the address of the property and how much it sold for. They care that much about the business. So those are things probably on the culture side, on the structure side. Even to that extent, we're constantly fighting with not fighting, but debating within ourselves the structure of the organisation and how we can ensure that it's the flattest, most dynamic, family corporate, I don't know if that's a word, family business possible without losing that. And we have had some success, particularly in our commercial business since COVID, over the last 3 years, where we've actually seen a migration of a number of people who have come from those corporate cultures across to join us, who have said for their personal reasons, that's not working for them.
A corporate culture.
The corporate culture. Yeah. There's a few things. Some of them you might scoff at. Some of them are, they go to the Christmas party and get 2 tokens for a drink. And they're going, guys, we're adults. Is this really how we're being treated? Others are more around probably the softer side of it. We know a lot of companies in New Zealand and around the world are moving towards flexible work and work from home and these sort of hybrid type models. And that doesn't work for everybody, and particularly in an industry that's so people-focused that we are. And we've actually gone and embraced a concept we call thrive from work. So instead of work from home, thrive from work. So we are still in the office 5 days a week. We have a lot of fun around the office. We do, like you came and did a talk with some of our people on Thursday night in our executive lounge. We're putting on morning teas where we've constantly all these different, whether they're events or speakers or food trucks or music or whatever they are, to create that environment where people feel like they can belong. People still have a desk. That might sound ancient to some people listening, but I promise you the empowerment of having that desk, and there's a photo of their partner and their children or the dog, and when I go up to say, hi, how's the market going? It's a bit tough. Hey, tell us about the family.
Yeah.
But we're building that culture around us. We're not a factory of 100 desks. Here's a locker. Come and do your work. Go. That's actually your home, your space that you should be proud of belonging to being a part of this.
Do you think it's it's almost a choice, and is it industry specific? Because what you're talking about there actually probably costs your company and a number of companies quite a lot of money to give people the desk, the space. Like, it's quite easy to go work from home 2 days a week, hot desks, in, out, economies of scale. I mean, we were talking about it last night on a different thing, but a tiny percentage shift in one thing can lead to a massive, and it is a financial gain in another way, which a lot of people see high performance as we perform really well, especially in the corporate world, we'll make a lot of money, and that's almost the goal. So you guys are investing a lot that maybe other real estate companies or other companies aren't investing in, like you said, putting on different things at work. Your office has quite a unique environment. You have spaces that are dedicated to things that might only happen for 1 hour a week. But I mean, the room that we're in, it probably gets used more than an hour a week, but it's prime real estate in downtown Auckland. That costs a lot of money. How do you play it against this sort of investment versus output? Like, because how do you put a price on culture is almost what I'm saying.
Well, I think you've answered your own question in a way. And look, I'm still challenging this cost saving thing, right? Because, I understand it, right? You rent 10,000 square foot instead of 20,000 square foot. That's a cost saving. I get it. But what is the cost of that? Is there, I mean, let's not forget the biggest cost that most businesses will have are people, not office space. Yeah. So if because of that decision you've made, you've saved X number of dollars per square foot on office space, that's wonderful. But what's that costing you in recruitment or retention? I don't know what the cost to recruit someone is in the Middle East. And
astronomical.
In New Zealand is the same, right?
Right.
So if they leave, the cost to replace that is just in terms of physically paying the recruiter, that's 2 months' salary, let alone the downtime, the training, you're probably 6 months to bring them back into culture, the disruption to that team or that business. So we've got to put a cost on that. I think we have to put a cost on innovation, right? And I feel we've come in, and particularly post this COVID world, where innovation seems to be outsourced or seems to be used as an M&A tool to innovate rather than actually creating that within one's culture. And I'm not talking about creating the next iPhone or flying to the moon. Some of the most innovative things in the business happen around a water cooler, happen when you're going up or down the stairs and you bump into someone and you can create those things. So, we need to put a price on all of that, or a value on all of that, to offset the price over here. And I don't have an Excel sheet or a ledger that can tell you the pluses and minuses for Bayleys, but we believe that those things will add up to a higher number than the cost here. And the other thing I would challenge, not specifically anybody, but challenge the work from home and the reduced space, some of these trends coming through, is they are still massive social experiments. I mean, we're reading these articles and they're made out to be fact, that this is just the new way of doing it, it's all wonderful. We are yet to see any of the impacts of this coming through. Yeah. We're yet to see the mental health impacts. We're yet to see what does that mean when I'm disconnected from my colleagues and I'm sitting in front of a screen all day? What's that doing to my mental health, my physical health? What's that doing to my belonging or feeling to be part of a company? You can't test that in a 3-year window.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see a lot more of this coming through, and particularly as other trends overlay the workspace and the culture. We're not going to get into it today, but talk about artificial intelligence, talk about outsourcing jobs. So then what happens if you don't need to be in the office? Then the next question is, why can't I do your job from the Philippines? And the next question is, why can't I get a robot to do your job? Yeah. So if you're not there contributing to culture, you're not there adding to an environment, you're not there being part of this belonging to something, then ultimately, isn't that just becoming a widget? Isn't that becoming a piece that we can just sort of source from anywhere?
As you said, AI is probably
a rabbit hole.
A whole other rabbit hole as well. There are two things that you've said, or two positions that have come into my mind through what you've said. One is, and we're hearing these positions being more and more prevalent in organizations now. One is chief culture officers, and the other one, which I think has been around for a while, but it's interpreted a bit different, chief innovation officer. We normally get innovation officers, I think it's more synonymous with tech for some reason, but you mentioned it in a way there, sort of in innovation. Do you guys have a chief culture officer? Do you have someone who's in charge of culture?
I'll answer this two ways. No, we don't have that title. And for the record, we don't have an HR department.
Yeah.
And some people will look at that and say, well, therefore they mustn't value people, or therefore that's not taken seriously. The family's view is the polar opposite. That is our number one job, whether you're CEO or general manager of an office or a team leader, or your number one job is people and culture. Why would we outsource or insource that to anyone but the people in charge? So I would call our chief culture officer our chairman, Mike Bayley. He's in the office every day. He'll come and join you for a pitch, he'll help win a customer, he'll have a beer with you at the end of the day, he'll turn up to a recruitment meeting, he'll be in the coffee shop in the morning, shouting the team a scone and a cup of tea. Like that culture literally comes from the top down.
Do you think that's maybe where there's a little bit of disconnect in other organizations that are also aiming for high performance? It's like it's too outsourced, and there's a disconnect between the CEO and the head of HR.
I mean, potentially. I mean, again, I'm not going to be an expert on commenting on corporate structure, and nor do I think that. I think there are some companies out there that do it very well.
Yeah.
I listen a lot to Simon Sinek. He's probably my favorite in terms of that. And you listen to some of the examples that he brings through, and where organizations do have that alignment, where they can be very successful, no matter how big their size or scale is.
Yeah.
Apple's often a company that comes up in that regard, in the way that was structured early on. And I know he compares that to other companies that have been through, same product, same service, same size, and what's the difference in that? So I'm not sure it's necessarily the size of it. I think it probably comes down more to the leadership within those and what their objectives are.
Yeah.
And if your objective is particularly public companies, quarterly profit margins, analyst calls, if that's your focus, then of course you're not going to be over here focused on those other people, innovation and culture things.
It's interesting though, isn't it, mate? Because we go to university or we go to school, we learn a trade that we further develop at university, and it could be, it could be business, it could be law, it could be a number of different things. It could be a doctor. And as we climb, I guess, further up the hierarchy, or as we progress in our careers, the skill set that maybe we've learned at university in business, and actually how to do the job that we're doing, becomes less relevant as we move to these positions of leadership. And what we're talking about here, culture, people skills, developing environment, grabbing someone and saying, let's go and have a coffee, actually becomes a lot more important than, because you've got a structure underneath you of these brains to do that work. So the whole thing kind of changes a lot for people.
Of course it does. And we talk a lot in our business around EQ versus IQ.
Yes.
Right. And I think that to the point of the degree and the experience, in our game, I think it'd be very difficult to do my job without having done what I've done. I think it's very difficult to not have lost a pitch, had a deal fall over, the rejection of 100 cold calls. If you haven't done that, I think you would struggle to have the mandate to lead at the scale we've got. And I'm not saying it's the same for all industries, but I do think that IQ, or that base, that if we think of it as a pyramid, is a really important part as you build up. But a lot of the focus that we've been putting our leadership attention around is around EQ.
Yeah.
And there's an incredible woman who works for us called Paula Bennett. And Paula used to be Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand. So how lucky are we? Classic New Zealand story. Of course we know the Deputy Prime Minister. Of course she works with us. But Paula would have the highest EQ of anybody I've ever met. So she's come in after a massively successful political career with zero real estate experience, and within 3 or 4 years has rose to the top through that EQ, through being able to read people. We could all be in a room, we could have 3 experts on real estate who have done it all their lives, and Paula sitting there, and we'll leave and we'll be going, oh, we think they want this for the price, and we think this is they're going to position to add value to their asset. And Paula will go, you guys have completely missed this. What they want is someone that's going to take care of their money beyond the sale to protect their family trust. So what they're actually looking for is some advice that this isn't cut and run here.
Yeah.
And you just go, wow, that's going to change the entire way that we then come back and present to them as a team through what they're looking to achieve. And that, to your point, that EQ, that Paula and others in our company demonstrate as well, is something that's not taught. It's not. There's not that I'm aware of. There's not a degree in emotional intelligence.
I mean, there is and there isn't, right? There's various qualifications in psychology and actually how people behave and why people behave in the way that they behave. And also, it's interesting what you say there, because I see that playing out a lot in the fitness industry. What Paula picked up on, that client might not consciously know, but when she would make them conscious of it, when she would present it like that, then because it's like, I'm not feeling great, there's something going on, but I can't really describe what it is. We get that a lot. So there's something happening within our subconscious that we can't put our finger on. When in this place, and I think a lot of good real estate agents are just good coaches, good life coaches. Like you say, they're trying to add value to someone's life. Now, there's a lot of Dubai real estate agents that, and the market in Dubai is quite different in that people want to move very fast. Whereas in New Zealand, I guess they're moving a little bit slower, and it's a longer game. But what we're trying to do, we're trying to coach people, and we're trying to understand and help them to understand what actually is their motivation, what's their underlying motivation. And that's where I think there are, why shouldn't a real estate agent go and do some form of qualification in psychology? Well, I did, and to all intents and purposes, we're running a fitness company, and in 2000, and I think I did my sports psychology diploma in 2011. And yes, it's related to sport, but I saw at an early stage that it's actually not, and this is where the parallels are so close. Like, you can sit with me and tell me about the return on this building and this and that and the other, but if you haven't tuned into actually what I'm trying to protect for my family's future, the building, it's irrelevant to me. And it's the same. If I can't tap in and help you to understand the importance of taking care of your health from an emotional standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, then, and I say that, the air squats, the burpees, it's just all, it's all just hearsay. What's important is, so will we see that, do you think? I mean, you've learned from Paula the importance of emotional intelligence. Why is there a direct plan for Bayleys, because that's not relevant, but do you see in the future that actually we'd start to take qualifications or skills in different areas, bring that skill in to teach people?
Look, from Bayleys' point of view, obviously there's no degree as such, but again, I go back to what I said right at the very start. There's sort of a natural selection on people that are good at that. If you don't have a good rapport or can't build good rapport with people, you won't win a listing, you won't earn any money, you fall out of the industry. So there is a natural desire for people to want to improve that. In terms of as an industry, I think it's a bigger problem. You talked about it in fitness, we can talk about it in real estate. I mean, I look at my kids, I look at the younger people we're hiring today.
Yeah.
I think the biggest obstacle a lot of them are going to have to overcome is actually around personal, physical, human interactions.
Yeah.
You know, if you've grown up on one of these and this is your life, and this is how you date, and this is how you order food, and this is how you get around the country, around the city, then how do you then transfer that into actually going to someone's living room, into someone's business, and someone building trust? So what you're touching on, I think, is a much bigger, maybe I don't want to get into a societal problem, but a generational shift in the way in which we do behave. For us, an example we use a lot is, it's a te reo, a Māori saying, called kānawa ki te kānawa, which physically or literally translate to nose. So in Māori you have a hongi, right, to meet somebody. And in the Māori culture, that is such an important part of trust. You haven't tried to stab them, we're going back hundreds of years, right? That is a form of trust, and that's how you build those relationships. We are big on pushing that, and that may seem like the most tiny, minute thing in terms of training, but by sending someone who's doing their third or fourth deal, who may be in their 20s, along with someone who's been doing it for a long time, 10, 15 years, to present an offer, to go and physically door knock a property. By doing that, we're actually taking them through this education process. We're actually teaching them what it's like to build those relationships. You know, take someone along to a networking drinks, take someone along to a talk or some sort of educational thing, but go with some purpose. Go to actually meet someone, have a conversation, open up a bit. And
it's interesting, isn't it? Because and I've spoken about this on previous shows, how we're potentially the human operating system, and what we've been speaking about for the last half hour or so is high performance is actually relationships. It's the ability to connect with other humans, because that's what brings us up. But what you've come to now is the impact of tech on that, and essentially what brings us up or has brought us up in the past, we've put tech into, and it's kind of prizing us apart a little bit. I mean, I see it in our industry, like young trainers or young coaches don't want to just get on the phone to people and, just, okay, here's a guy, here's a number, give them a call, they want to start training tomorrow. A day later, what happened to that person? I sent them a message. Okay, I didn't tell you to send them a message. I told you they're a little bit old school like me, they're 45 and they want a phone call. But we're sort of, it's a difficult situation. And there's also, we spoke about it a little bit last night, there's some people that actually, and we ask this now, so when you, which is not dissimilar to a number of companies, but when you fill out an inquiry form on our site, we ask you how you'd like to be contacted. And some people stipulate they'd love to be contacted by WhatsApp and others by phone. But it is interesting, mate, like you said, and your children, the kids that are growing up today, they're going to be stuck because human connection is so important. There's a reason why that Maori culture is what it is. And if you look in all cultures, I was watching something on Indigenous Australians as well, and how they're welcoming people in, and this is the way. And they have it now, as you know, at the start of every sports game. They have this welcome to our land. But technology is almost prizing itself in. So is it a surprise that people don't understand culture and high performance the way that you and I do?
It's generational, right? And our parents, we're similar age. Our parents will have a different understanding of that as well. And look, I'm not sitting here saying that we as Bayleys or me as in my role are afraid of tech or we're embracing it. We're 100% embracing it, every element we can. But we're embracing it in a way to make more physical connections. That's the objective of it, is by putting tech into the business, how can I prompt as you said before with your inquiry system, how can we prompt more human interactions? We're not trying to remove those. We're actually trying to create more of them. So an example of that might simply be we've got a data pool of, we do about 12,000 transactions a year. So that's 24,000 people each side of, obviously 2 people each side of a deal.
At least.
And then you can run, what sits in our data lake, and you can then run an algorithm over that to say, well, let's contact everybody that purchased in a 2016 to 2019, because the laws just changed on capital gains in New Zealand, so people that have owned their properties for 5 years now won't have to pay a tax on top of that.
Right.
And we think investors have bought between maybe, up to $2 million. So if we run that algorithm over that, we can spit out the end of it to say to our brokers, here is, whatever the number is, 100 people that fit that criteria that we think you should deliver this piece of thought leadership to around the recent changes in law. So that's tech working. Yeah. That's not tech replacing our people. There's not a bot that's sending an email to them that they probably get 100 emails a day. They read it in the paper. It's actually someone going, hey, thank you for buying that property for us. How are you enjoying it? How's the investment going? Hey, were you aware of this? And so you're continually building that rapport and trust. Yeah. And as you said, we talked about it last night, that, I don't want to be too cliche, but the idea is a dime a dozen. What you do, there must be 1,000 fitness providers in the Middle East. In New Zealand, there's well over 1,000 real estate companies in New Zealand. That's not what we do that's different. We're not trying to create, it's the human piece that's the point of difference. It's the culture, the talent attraction, the people that are attracted to that are fundamentally, and I think moving forward will make even more of a difference.
One of the things that always strikes me about the culture that you guys have, and also a lot of, I think, high-performing people and organizations, is the ability to see past tomorrow, the ability to vision, really, like what's 5 years, what's 10 years, and we can put this down to a certain industry, we can put it down to a country, like we live in Dubai and you're like, wow, Sheikh Mohammed had this incredible vision. Mm-hmm. How important in high performance is this concept of sort of long-term thinking?
It's everything, right? I mentioned before Simon Sinek. And in our commercial business, we've actually been on a journey for about 7 or 8 years now. We've basically followed his books and they've overlaid the strategy we've put in place.
I think if you followed Simon Sinek's books and theories and built an organization around it, almost to the T, you'd actually have a super successful organization.
So back in 2017, we had to start with why. So we actually had to really challenge ourselves, to your point. What does the future look like? What does 5 years look like? What does 10 years look like? Who do we want to be in an organization? What markets do we want to play in? What people do we want to work for us? So that was a challenging time, man. And I think it's often underestimated how tough that is on an organization to properly answer that question. It's not a half-day workshop off-site with a bunch of sort of feel-good activities. Man, it is hard. We had people leave, we had fallout, we went backwards by going through this process because some people didn't like that directional vision. So it took a really strong leadership group, and I say group, I mean that truly, some incredible people that all could share in this vision. And then as we started to prove it, we then started to build on that. And our most recent version of strategy, we've only had 3 in 8 years, is the infinite game. So we actually, so we've actually then said, well, as a business now, how do we think in that infinite mindset? What does those 5 principles that Simon Sinek talks about to be an infinite business, how do they then apply to us? And then in terms of setting that next set of goals. And again, the challenge on that. So firstly, to have a business that was going pretty well, we've been around for, 40 years by this stage, to then sort of challenge some of that, to go backwards and then grow, and then feel you reach this point where to go again, you've actually really got to change that thinking from what was our 5-year goal to what actually is that infinite mindset. It's scary, man. It's so scary.
It's challenging as well, because to have the people, and I think this is one of the biggest things, that everything's temporary. And I think this is one of the biggest things that we understand, the importance of vision and of long-term and of infinite game. But at the same time, we're also taught that life is fragile, life is fast, time is not guaranteed, and so how do you mix those two? Like, because it's tough, isn't it? Even if you have a 35-year-old, recently married, couple of kids, whatever, this is your future. You can be with us for 15 to 20 years. And because we need those people to create this environment of performance, they'll buy into it, but then next week, the commission rate down the road is 1% higher, which over the next 15 years, we won't bring her in, which over the next 15 years means this and this, and it maybe means his retirement. So how do you mix the two? What I'm saying is we're also fast becoming an immediate gratification, a very short-term thinking society, whereas the key, like you said, and it's frightening, but it's exciting playing an infinite game, because it's like we're setting this thing up forever. What we're creating is a legacy that lasts forever, but we could be a dwindling minority of people that buy into, or Simon Sinek's, that'd be interesting to see how his popularity is probably up and down based on other factors as well, right? But so what I'm trying to say, or what I'm trying to ask you, is your thoughts on how we mix the two, how we mix this, we've got one life, time is precious, tomorrow it might all be gone, with the infinite game.
Well, one I've touched on, I think there's 2 key points for us that we use. One I've touched on is belonging. And I know that might sound cliche, but having the photo of the family on the desk, there's a guy who works in our team, Pete Gordon. He's actually got a little emergency cigarette on, and it's like an emergency break glass, and that sits on his desk, and everyone knows Pete's desk, and that's part of his belonging, that's part of his, it's a funny amazing thing for like, and there'll be all sorts of those little things that create belonging. So you're not coming to work necessarily, obviously the financial outcomes is one of the goals, but you're coming to be a part of something, you know what I mean? You're coming to belong. I think the other piece of secret sauce, which is impossible to recreate, or I've never seen it sort of artificially created, is fun. You like the amount of enjoyment, the laughs, the jokes, in our environment, some of it's probably still pretty risque. You ask the question of corporate world, we've got to get away with all the jokes that go around the office, but it's not just that, it's the fun we have with everything, Obviously there's a serious nature, because we care about our people, we care about our customers, so we're not sitting there joking around all the time. But there are ways you can bring fun elements into every meeting we have, So I think that becomes a key part, again, that natural selection that we talked before about people that survive and who do well, being able to enjoy what you do. I love my job. I love going to work. I love the people I work with. I love the customers. It actually is what excites me. It's not a burden for me to go to work. I'm lucky they pay me, because I'd still turn up if they didn't. But I think there's so many people in our organisation that feel the same way. They feel it's a real, because you get to go and hang with your mates all day. You get to go and,
it's not the worst.
And then let's jump in the car and go for a pitch. On the way we'll have a yarn about the rugby on the weekend and the cricket, and on the way back we'll talk strategy about what we're going to follow up with. And so that fun element takes away perhaps what is really in probably like fitness or real estate or so many other things, what is quite a monotonous customer journey. You appraise, you list, you market, you sell. You appraise, you list, you market, you sell. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
But if you're doing that with fun, if you're doing that with your mates, if you're doing that in a place you feel like you belong, you're by nature going to perform higher than someone that's literally there to pick up a paycheck at the end of it.
We've got some good concepts. We've mentioned them over and over. Belonging, hard work, fun, culture, playing the long game are all key components of a high performance culture, no matter what it is. To wrap it up, if you were to choose one as your most important, let's say, pillar of what we've spoken about for the last 45, 50 minutes of high performance, what is the most important ingredient?
Ooh. I think it's hard work. No matter what your background, what your experience or skill level or where you've come from, everybody can work hard. Everybody can do their best to actually contribute, whether that's being proactive with a cold call, returning a phone call that your boss has asked you to make, whether it's offering to help out, whether it's walking around the office to go and introduce yourself to some new people. I think that hard work is the silver bullet. That hustle, that energy, that every single person can bring to everything they're doing today, everything they're doing in their workplace. You can give everything you've got, and I think that's what everything else is built off.
And that wasn't scripted at all. The fact that hard work is one of our values that's on the wall at InnerFight, as is fun. So you've got.
I was there many years ago.
You've got two of the six in. But Lloyd, super interesting as always, mate. And I think as you do, I'm always interested. Different industry, but exactly the same. It's humans dealing with humans. You took a politician and made her a great. I think, is she a great real estate agent? Yes. But is she just a great human to have in a real estate business? Yes.
Absolutely.
So I think the more that we look at high performance as actually how people are dealing with people, we make some pretty cool stuff happening. And we're excited to continue to watch what you make happen over there. And let's see if we have a Chief Culture Officer at Bayleys announced in the next 6 months.
I'm not sure on that one. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.